Imagine you're standing in line at a coffee shop. The guy in front of you hears his name called, and his tail starts wagging. Not because he's trying to, it just happens. A kid gets nervous before giving a presentation. His tail curls tightly around his leg. Someone walks into a first date. Two people don't even say a word. Their tails already did. Sounds ridiculous. Maybe even a little creepy. But here's the strange part. For most of Earth's history, that would have been completely normal. Almost every mammal has a tail. Dogs have them. Cats have them. Kangaroos practically live on them. Even tiny mice, giant whales, and monkeys all carry some version of one. And if you go back far enough, so did your ancestors. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, literally. Millions of years ago, your family tree had tails. So here's the question nobody really asks. If tails are so useful, why don't we have one? Most people assume humans just never needed tails. That's actually not true. In fact, losing our tail may have been one of the most expensive trade-offs evolution ever made. Because a tail isn't just some extra piece hanging off your body. It's a balancing pole, a steering wheel, a communication device. Sometimes it's a weapon. Sometimes it's a fifth limb. Watch a squirrel sprint across a power line. Watch a cheetah take a sharp turn at full speed. Watch a monkey leap through a rainforest without missing a branch. Their tails aren't decorations. They're doing real work. So why would evolution throw away something that useful? Evolution isn't exactly known for wasting good ideas. It usually keeps anything that helps you survive. Unless keeping it becomes even more expensive. And that's where this story takes a turn almost nobody sees coming. Because the answer doesn't start with humans. It doesn't even start with apes. It starts deep inside your body, right now. Hidden beneath your skin is a tiny row of fused bones called the coccyx. Most people know it as the tailbone. Funny name, considering there's no tail attached to it. It doesn't wag. It doesn't help you balance. Most of the time, you completely forget it's there. Until you slip on a wet floor and land on it. Then suddenly, your tailbone becomes the most important bone you've ever owned. But that little bone isn't random. It's a fossil. Not one buried in rock. One buried inside you. It's the last surviving piece of something your ancestors carried for millions of years. Which raises an even bigger question. If evolution went through all the trouble of getting rid of our tails, why did it leave the evidence behind? Most people imagine evolution as this perfectly organized process. Like nature sitting behind a giant desk with a clipboard. Tails are outdated. Let's remove those. That's not how evolution works. Evolution doesn't plan. It doesn't predict the future, and it definitely doesn't know where it's going. It just keeps whatever works, until something works a little better. So to understand why humans lost their tails, we have to travel back about 25 million years ago, long before cities, before language, before humans, before even the first ape looked remotely like us. The forests of Africa looked very different then. The trees stretched endlessly across the landscape, and almost everything lived above the ground. If you fell, you probably didn't get embarrassed. You got eaten. For millions of years, our distant ancestors moved exactly like modern monkeys do today. Running across branches, jumping between trees, balancing on limbs barely wider than your wrist. Out there, a tail wasn't optional. It was survival. Think of it like a built-in balancing pole. The faster you moved, the more valuable it became. Watch a spider monkey swing through the rainforest today. Its tail isn't just hanging there for decoration. It's grabbing branches, holding body weight. Sometimes it's doing so much work that the monkey almost has 4 hands and 1 extra arm. Pretty impressive. Meanwhile, humans struggle to carry groceries and unlock the front door at the same time. Clearly, we traded something. But then, something strange happened. Around 25 million years ago, the ancestors of modern apes suddenly stopped growing tails. Chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans, gibbons, and eventually, us. Every single ape lost them. Not gradually over hundreds of different experiments. In evolutionary terms, it happened surprisingly fast. Scientists debated this mystery for decades. Did tails become useless? Did they get in the way? Were they simply too expensive for the body to build? Nobody knew for sure. Then, in 2024, researchers stumbled onto something they weren't even expecting. Deep inside the DNA of humans and other apes, they found a tiny genetic mutation.
A microscopic change, one that affected a gene known as TBXT. By itself, it looks almost meaningless, just another sequence among billions of letters inside your DNA. But when scientists recreated that mutation in laboratory mice, something incredible happened. Some of the mice were born with dramatically shorter tails. Others had no tail at all. For the first time, researchers had discovered a possible genetic clue explaining one of evolution's oldest mysteries. But like almost every answer in evolution, it came with an unsettling catch. Because losing our tails may have solved one problem, while creating another that millions of people are still born with today. The same genetic change that may have helped our ancestors lose their tails also appears to increase the risk of certain spinal birth defects, including conditions similar to spina bifida. Now, researchers are still investigating exactly how strong that connection is, and many questions remain unanswered. But the possibility itself is astonishing. Imagine that. One tiny mutation, one microscopic edit inside DNA, may have permanently changed the shape of every ape that would ever live, including you. That's evolution. Not perfect, not intelligent, just millions of tiny compromises stacked on top of one another, which leads to an uncomfortable realization. Maybe evolution didn't decide tails were bad. Maybe it simply decided that something else was more important. So, what could possibly be worth giving up an entire body part? The answer wasn't behind us. It was underneath us. Our legs. Most people think humans became bipedal, standing on 2 legs, because it looked more efficient. That's only part of the story. Walking upright changed almost everything. Your hands became free. Free to carry food. Free to make tools. Free to hold children. Eventually, free to build civilizations. But standing upright also completely changed the way the spine balanced the body. A heavy tail hanging behind you suddenly wasn't helping in the same way anymore. Instead, your pelvis became wider. Your lower back curved differently. Powerful muscles formed around your hips. The entire architecture of your body was redesigned. Think about renovating a house. You can remove one wall, but eventually, the plumbing changes, the wiring changes, the roof changes. Pretty soon,
It isn't the same house anymore. That's exactly what happened to our ancestors. Losing the tail wasn't one isolated event. It was part of rebuilding the entire body from the ground up. And once that process began, there was no going back. Still, here's something that's almost impossible not to wonder. If tails disappeared because we no longer needed them, why do they still appear? Every year, a handful of babies are born with what doctors call a true human tail. It's incredibly rare, but it happens. A small, soft extension forms near the tailbone. Sometimes it's just skin and fat. In even rarer cases, it contains muscles, nerves, and blood vessels. No bones. No wagging. No superhero abilities. Sorry. But it's enough to remind scientists that the blueprint for building a tail never completely disappeared. It was mostly switched off. That's one of the strangest things about evolution. It doesn't always erase old instructions. Sometimes, it simply puts them in a drawer and never opens it again. Your DNA is full of those forgotten instructions. Genes for ancient traits. Genes copied from ancestors that lived millions of years before humans ever existed. Most stay silent forever. Occasionally, one whispers. And when it does, it's like hearing a voice from deep evolutionary history. A reminder that your body isn't something designed from scratch. It's more like an ancient manuscript. Edited, rewritten, crossed out, patched together, generation after generation. You are not the first draft. You're the latest edition. And every now and then, one tiny typo reveals a chapter that was never completely erased.
Thanks for watching! And if you suddenly grow a tail tomorrow, don't panic. Just